from John 16, verses 12 through 15. And the words of Jesus, I still have many things to say to you, but you cannot bear them now. When the Spirit of truth comes, he will guide you into all the truth. For he will not speak on his own, but will speak whatever he hears, and will declare to you the things that are to come. He will glorify me, because he will take what is mine and declare it to you. All that the Father has is mine. For this reason I said that he will take what is mine and declare it to you. The gospel of the Lord.
Praise you, Lord Christ.
Please be seated. And good morning.
Good morning.
Before getting into the message, I also want to read to you today's assigned psalm, which is Psalm 8. And I'll kind of loop back around to Psalm 8 at the end of the message. As we heard Pastor Gary talk in the prayers, and as all of us know, ministry among children is so important. And this Psalm 8 has a sense of amazement to it about God's creation, which is also a theme in today's texts. So as one of the themes of our sermon, we'll focus on children. I'd like to read Psalm 8 as we think about the amazing work that God has done to create all the earth. And that includes us, who God made a little bit lower than the angels. O Lord, our Lord, how majestic is your name in all the earth. You whose glory is chanted above the heavens, out of the mouths of infants and children. You have set up a fortress against your enemies, to silence the foe and avenger. When I consider your heavens, the work of your fingers, the moon and the stars you have set in their courses, what are mere mortals that you should be mindful of them? Human beings, that you should care for them. Yet you have made us little less than divine. With glory and honor you crown them. You have made them rule over the works of your hands. You have put all things under their feet, all flocks and cattle, even the wild beasts of the field, the birds of the air, the fish of the sea, and whatever passes along the paths of the sea. O Lord, our Lord, how majestic is your name in all the earth. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Tim Anderson, and I'm a colleague ELCA pastor with Pastor Gary and so many others throughout our church in this nation, and here in the city of Austin, where I'm the Director of Community Development for Austin City Lutherans, and you might have heard me say when I was here before, we are the other ACL. Not quite as big, not as much publicity, but we like music too. So we are the other ACL, and Karen, if you throw up that next slide, there it is, Austin City Lutherans. And Austin City Lutherans was formed in 2011. And it was a number of us pastors that got together with congregational leaders and said, we can do more, better, together, and let's go ahead and see how God will guide us to do that. Thank you, Gary. We always need technical assistance with the audio and the video, right? And so we were formed in this age of shrinking church, all right? And when I say shrinking church, you know what I'm talking about, and that's not a disparagement, but changes happen as time goes on. And it's not the 50s and it's not the 60s. Some of us remember those days when a lot of people went to church on Sunday morning. But now much more so, we're in this beginning of the 21st century, and not as many people come to church. And I don't say that doesn't matter, because it does matter. But we still have the wonderful call to mission and opportunity to go out. And that's what Austin City Lutherans does. And as I look around this morning at Faith Lutheran Church, I recognize a number of faces. We've met perhaps in other venues, but most recently a number of you have been to our food pantry called Bread for All, and helped us out with distribution. It was 1 year ago that Bread for All moved from Prince of Peace, and I'll say a little bit more about that in a second, across the street, and that street would be I-35. The Faith Presbyterian Church to continue its distribution. We started that distribution in 2013. Monday evenings, targeting working, low-income individuals and families. And a number of you have been with us, and you helped us out in the move. I remember these two guys helping us out with the move, brother and sister. They got their picture on our website. You can go check it out. And a number of you have been helping on that first Monday evening of the month with our distribution, and it's fantastic. Because as Pastor Gary said, we kind of get a lot of connection, and it's a two-way street. We have gifts to offer and share, but we get blessed also by conversing and get to know the situations of our neighbors who come to receive food. So Austin City Lutherans is committed to charity ministry, where we share the abundance that God has blessed us with. And if you've been with our distribution, you know that we serve low-income families, people who are disabled, seniors who are on fixed incomes, and yes, you know we're right by I-35, folks who are homeless as well. And even though Austin has a record low in the past 20 years, unemployment rate like 2% the last time I saw it, that's great. We rejoice in that. If you've been to the distribution, we still know that there are folks who are struggling and who are hungry, and we see a number of kids there. And we're thankful for that. So thank you, Faith Lutheran Church, for jumping on board with Austin City Lutherans and Bread for All about a year ago, and will continue to go forward. But Austin City Lutherans, Karen, we'll go to the second one, is also doing something we like to call a transformational ministry. Jesus calls us to do charity ministry. That's good to share what we've been given. But transformational ministry is also an opportunity with God's love and mercy and compassion and that sense of amazement that I want to bounce back to at the end of the message from Psalm 8 of development of the youngest ones in our midst. So Faith Lutheran Church has done good child care for how long? 60 years, a real long time. And a number of our other ACL congregations, about 12 or so, also do child care ministry. So this is a natural for us to do child care ministry. You might remember when I was here the first time a number of months back, I talked about how most of our ACL congregations are west of I-35. And when Prince of Peace was closed and it was sold about a year and a half ago, we essentially abandoned the east side of Austin. So here we are with an opportunity to do transformative ministry on the east side of Austin, specifically Montopolis. When was the last time you were to Montopolis? All right? I'm going to tell you about Montopolis this morning. If you're not exactly sure where Montopolis in Austin is, it's southeast. If you're driving to the airport on State Highway 71 going west, Montopolis is on your left as you pass underneath I-35 and go east. If you're driving down 183 going to the airport, Callahan's General Store is right there on your left side. Montopolis is on your right side. And so this is where ACL has targeted to do this transformative two-generation child care ministry. And when I say two-generation, we know that working with both generations, children doing the expected care amongst children, but also working with parents, doing a parent support group, and working with parents to see what kind of needs are there beyond support and encouragement. Maybe it's job training, maybe it's education. A two-generation approach is the best way to break the poverty cycle that continues to be entrenched in our wonderful United States of America. Don't get me wrong, but over the past 20, 25 years, we've become more and more unequal And we got kiddos who are stuck, unfortunately, in situations that are very difficult to get out of. Does Jesus command us to do this type of ministry, help people break out of the poverty cycle? Well, a number of us say, yes. In the 21st century, when we have agency and ability and resources to share, absolutely, we can do this type of ministry. Because remember, I told you, this is 21st century. People don't come to church kind of like they used to do back in the middle part of the last century and then later on. And so we are still called to go out. So I asked you, when was the last time you were at Montopolis in Austin? And I want to tell you a little bit about Montopolis, and Karen will take that next slide. And so there's a gentleman, and his name was Fred Underwood. He was a Catholic priest. He's no longer with us. In the year 2000 or so, he passed away at the age of 76. And so this is a photo when he was a little bit older, but he came to Montopolis in 1962. In the mid-1950s, some of you might remember, the city of Austin began to annex the property of Montopolis. Montopolis, as a community, actually predated Austin. Austin was established in 1839. Montopolis was established in 1830. And in the mid-1950s, the city of Austin began to annex the property of Montopolis. The city of Austin didn't do all that much for the area of Montopolis, traditionally populated by Hispanics and African Americans. They built Allison Elementary School through the school district. Allison Elementary School, established in 1955, is still there on Vargas Road in the heart of Montopolis, and it's doing well. But in the 1950s, at the beginning of annexation, there were still dirt roads in Montopolis. There wasn't a whole lot of electricity, and the city did not bring those new services along with the annexation. Father Underwood shows up, as I told you, in 1962 to pastor Dolores Catholic Church, still there on Montopolis Drive. He came down from Chicago. As I said, he was younger than he appears in this picture. He rode a motorcycle. He liked to wear a t-shirt. He looked a little bit like James Dean, all right? He had experience as a community organizer, and he was connected. He looked around the neighborhood, and he saw juvenile delinquency. He saw gangs. He saw youth fighting. And he organized a community. He went to the City of Austin Council. Remember, this is the early 1960s, before the enactments of civil rights legislation. You know what the Austin City Council was like back in those days, right? Now, nothing against white males. I'm a white male myself. All right, but when Father Underwood showed up at the Austin City Council in the early 1960s and said, we need a community center in Montopolis. We got kids who are fighting, we got gangs, we got all sorts of things that aren't so good going on. We need a community center. What do you think the Austin City Council said to Father Underwood? See you later. Yeah. Then he went to Parks and Rec, Father Underwood did. Same request. And Parks and Rec gave him the same response. See you later. Father Underwood was not to be deterred. He continued to organize, and he worked with the diocese, the Catholic diocese at that time, it was San Antonio. And they came up with a plan. You know, typically churches and parishes will mortgage part of their own property to buy or to build a new building or do some type of their own project. But they came up with a plan to mortgage part of Dolores Catholic Church. It was in Montopolis, probably wasn't worth as much as it is today, but still. They mortgaged part of the property, and across the street, they built the Montopolis Rec Center in 1964. Now, I asked you, when was the last time you went to Montopolis? The last time I went to Montopolis was when my son, who was about 6'4", 6'5", before he was driving a car, he played basketball on a team, and they practiced in Montopolis at the rec center. That was about 06, 07, when the last time I went over there. If not for him playing basketball, like a lot of us in Austin, I never would have went to Montopolis. But Father Underwood built that rec center with community organized. And I did say he was connected, right? He's Catholic, right? He knew this guy in Washington, D.C. The guy's name was Shriver. First name, Sargent. And he was married to a Kennedy, there we go, named Eunice. And he was the head of LBJ's War on Poverty, Office of Economic Opportunity. And so Father Underwood continued to go right around Austin City Council, right around Parks and Rec, directly to D.C. Shriver came down. They opened up one of the first Head Start programs in the nation in 1964 at the Rec Center, and then later on Shriver and Underwood worked together to get the first bus line in Montopolis. The roads were still dirt. But this is what they were able to do. Now, in all fairness to the city of Austin, in 1971, the Austin City Council decided that it was time to take over stewardship of the rec center. It was the right thing to do. Father Underwood and the folks in Montopolis did the right thing to do, but it was now time for the city to take over the rec center. Austin City Council directed Parks and Rec to take over the rec center, and today it's being redone. So I invite you to drive through Montopolis, go right through Montopolis Drive. On the east side of Montopolis Drive, you'll see Dolores Catholic Church. It's painted bright yellow. You can't miss it. And then on the other side, you'll see construction. And from a 2012 city bond that a number of us Austin voters passed, they're now redoing the Montopolis Rec Center. And I'll bet you $10, and I'd never heard this story before either, that most all of us have not heard the story of Father Underwood and what a church organization was able to do in a part of the city that had great need. And my friends, I say to you today, even though the church is in the age of shrinking, we still have great ability and agency to do some things that other groups either can't do or are not willing to do. Next slide, Karen. As if in a small parallel, Protestant universe, in the late 1950s, a group of United Methodist women from about 12 United Methodist churches in Austin had a group that wanted to do specialized ministry. And they were directed to Montopolis. At the end of Civitan Park, which is adjacent to Allison Elementary School, which I've already mentioned, and since the late 1950s, United Methodist women, for more than 60 years, have done ministry at the Montopolis Friendship Community Center with a thrift store, a community center, and get this, a child care. But it was about a year and a half ago, and the ladies told us, and I quote them, they've aged out, all right? That's their words. They've aged out. They stopped doing the child care. And thanks be to God, and I will tell you more about the details in the after church adult ed forum later on, but we met up with the women of the Montopolis Friendship Community Center, and they were so happy to know that here was a group that wanted to do child care. And so we are making the plans to rehab this building, and sometime this fall to reestablish child care, working in tandem with Allison Elementary School in this building. So again, church organizations that are able to do some amazing things where other groups can't or are not willing to do so. Last slide, Carrie. And so there's the website. You can go check it out, www.austinCityLutherans.org. Psalm 8. Psalm 8, this wonderful psalm that speaks about God as creator. And the text that I read had it a little bit different, but I remember that Revised Standard Version text that said, God created us a little bit lower than the angels. We're pretty special, and we've been put here on earth not to lord it over all other forms of life, but to direct and to be good stewards. And I remember the first time I was here, some of you remember, we were in the adult ed session afterwards, and I met Wanda. Remember, I was asking, what was the first Bible story that you ever heard of? And Wanda raised her hand. She said, when I was 3 years old, my mom brought me to church, and I heard the first Bible story, Jesus blessing the little children. And then I asked Wanda, does this Bible story that you learned as a young child have anything to do with the way you lived your life? And she said, well, she didn't say. Everyone around her said, yes, Pastor, she and her husband fostered over 350 children. Of course there's a connection with that first Bible story that she learned. And my friends, it's so nice to come back and to see Wanda, because I wrote up a blog post on the site. You can see it there. The Austin American-Statesman reprinted the same story in the Saturday thing. But it wasn't the first time her story was in the Austin American-Statesman, and it won't be the last time either. But we have this wonderful opportunity to do a similar type ministry that Wanda and her husband did for so many years, that has so many good ripple effects going on and on through the years into the next generations. We have the same opportunity. God has put us here. And my wife and I will be blessed next month to be grandparents for the first time. And I know a number of you know what that blessing is all about. I've heard that you see this little one and your world changes again, right? And so we have this opportunity to partner with others in Southeast Austin with these little ones. You know, and I know my little one, my first grandchild that's going to be born, has got 2 parents, 4 grandparents, and a whole bunch of others. I mean, you've been to it before. We had the baby shower a couple of weeks ago. It was like 45 minutes of opening presents, right? I mean, blessing and support is there, and that's the way God intends it, but not all kiddos today, as we know, as Wanda has known for so long, have that opportunity. Might we join in with other partners, ACL partners, and other partners in Austin to do this type of ministry again? I invite you to join us as we give God thanks together for the calling, even in this age of shrinking church, to continue to do